used to be that kid in middle school who loved reading. If it was the end of the day, you might have seen me across the lot, crouched over, nose in a book. And during those moments of peace, life was easy, as I simply forgot about the world and spent it lost in someone else's. I read all the classics: Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, Hunger Games, and more. I even read 1,000,000 words every year and all that and got my little pizza party. I was that kid. Yeah, I know, it's really impressive and awesome and stuff, but now, life happened. In high school, reading was something that I had to do for school, and I started associating it with work. Besides that, in high school, I barely had time for anything since I was taking advanced classes and had a million extracurriculars. Truth is, I was just plain busy, and my once beloved hobby fell to the wayside. And now, as a college student, well, I somehow have more free time. I wasn't joking when I said my high school was tough. And, well, I found myself yearning for that feeling again. And since reading is supposed to help you be a better, more productive member of society, it seemed like the perfect, easiest challenge to make a video on, where I can talk extensively about several generic things I gained from it, like improving my ability to focus and gaining a new perspective. And with that in mind, I dove headfirst into this challenge, not realizing that I actually would learn a lot from these authors, but also about myself. And I came to accept something I always wished I believed. For my first read, I decided to challenge myself with a book called On Becoming a Novelist. The main thing I gleaned from this novel was that the question, can I become a professional novelist, is actually a question worth asking. As a person who likes to jump into whatever pursuit I'm interested in, I don't usually think about those sorts of questions, as I found them to represent a sort of anxiety, and a way for the answerer of the question to be like, yes, of course. It's like when I would always ask, do you think I'd be a good streamer? And my friends, knowing them, they'd just be like, yeah, of course. You're great, you're amazing, you're so funny and charismatic, I would definitely subscribe and like the video, and so on. However, the approach the author takes to the question is very different, as he regards it with a level of seriousness and respect that the aspiring novelist deserves, as he would say it. And over the course of the novel, I've come to appreciate the act of the question and the act of answering it, as the process ends up revealing things. Like what the author thinks are the key talents or lack of talents that one would need to work on to actually become a novelist. In this way, I think that the book has opened me up to the idea of seeing a question like that and treating it with respect and care. Perhaps it's something I should ask myself for other pursuits as well, like being a YouTuber, a streamer, a game developer, or whatever. What key talents or lack of talents should I focus on? My next surprise came in the form of reading Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. In all honesty, I didn't really expect to enjoy it. I sort of bought this book thinking that it would be kind of cool if I read it, and it would sort of project this cool image of myself, which is, a version of me who would read elaborate prose and science fiction. And it's silly, I know, but that's why I bought it. Also, the cover was really pretty. And so, whenever I did this challenge, I found it really funny that I ended up reaching for this one. Either way, my appreciation was slow and gradual. At first, I didn't really know what to think. It was nothing like I'd ever read before, but turning each page felt like stepping into a more lucid dream. But it grew on me. I just came to love all the oddly specific details that built up the tower, the setting, the creatures, and all the other weird stuff. Minor spoiler, but the fact that tiny little bits of fungi built letters just blew my mind. I never would have thought of something like that. I also really liked the flesh tower. I just love flesh pits in general after learning about the mystery flesh pit, so I found the flesh pit in this book pretty cool. Flesh pits are pretty cool. But genuinely seriously, this book was very perfect for me. I am a lover of anything that tries to be novel, avant-garde, and experimental when it comes to just things in general, so to see it in this book's structure and world building was really nice. Then I went online, and I saw that a lot of people didn't like it, and it was really funny to see such a divide. I guess I just really like weird stuff. I'm quirky like that, Okay, so yeah, I'm glad I pushed through this one and read through it, even though I was apprehensive about it at first. And then I failed the challenge. Wait, look, I know it sounds crazy, but I didn't actually fail after 2 books. Look, the thing is, after reading those first 2 books, I kept trying to read books outside of my comfort zone of YA romance. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I realized that it takes way more time than just a week to read those. And the pressure was starting to climb. I kept hearing,
"Read those productive intellectual books,"
over and over in my head. And, well, it wasn't that easy to just read the books. So I ended up failing for a couple weeks because it took too much time. And to make up for it, I tried to read those YA romances that were supposed to be easy for me. But sometimes I just didn't like them all that much and I felt ashamed. In my mind, I couldn't just drop them. I'd already progressed too far, and when I tried to push through it, I ended up not finishing them anyway. And so I started to find myself losing motivation for this project. And then college finals of the major I hated were happening. I had barely any time for YouTube. So yeah, this challenge just seems like another failure. And not the regular get back up again failures, but like one of those failures where I should just quit. And so in an act of, welp, it's over, might as well have a bit of fun for once, I decided to read a few webcomics. Something that has given me comfort in my lowest of lows, and that basically counts as junk food for how easy it is to read. With me choosing one the name of See You in My 19th Life. And holy shit, did that comic just resonate with me. It's a manhwa about a girl who had 18 past lives, which made her indifferent to life, so she lived like she was invisible. And then she meets a spoiled brat. He's childish and annoying in the way that only spoiled rich kids are, but she becomes endeared to him. He makes her feel like a kid again. They play, and she teases him, and she enjoys her childhood for once and all those reincarnations. And minor spoiler that you can skip to here, that totally doesn't relate to the title, she dies. And she decides, because of him, to not be invisible in her next life. She tries her hardest to meet him again, working hard and standing out to get a good job, because, of course, he's the son of a CEO, and the only possible way to meet him is by working the corporate ladder. And she just has so much spunk. She's like the most sure of herself, the most confident MC I have ever seen. She knows what she wants in life, and she's gonna fight for it, which is to connect with him again. It was so inspirational to see her in action. It was the perfect comic for me at the time. And you know, I guess reading all that and just having so much fun following a story again, well, it reminded me that I'm supposed to be enjoying this. This challenge was supposed to be fun and engaging and gripping, and not in a weird way. So, if I can have fun reading comics, why can't I have fun reading books? You know, maybe I shouldn't feel pressure to be super productive and deep with the books I read, though I do admit it's good for you. And also, who cares if I don't like a book? I shouldn't feel so much pressure to finish it. And that's where I resolved, let's just have fun. Let's read trashy shit. Let's read a bunch of books that are romance that I won't like because I'm really specific with what romances I like. This is also where I decided that for this challenge, I'm allowed to read fanfiction for it. Whoa. Did you just say fanfiction? Yes, I did say fanfiction. Also, I'm facing the back. And I know, something like fanfiction is seen as lowbrow, low quality, not worthwhile writing, but it doesn't matter anymore, because for this challenge, I just want to do justice to that part of me who wanted to go back to that middle school kid who loved reading, and reading everything and anything, and falling into a story. And so I did exactly that. I fell into reading again, and found it surprisingly easy. And if I didn't like something for whatever reason, I just dropped it. Gone. Bye-bye! And life went on. But there was one book specifically that well, it resonated with me so much that it's my current favorite book of all time, and it's called Mother of Learning. If you don't know, Mother of Learning is about a mage that goes to mage school, that gets trapped in a time loop that resets at the end of every month. I won't spoil it too much, mainly because if you want my extended and in-depth first thoughts on it, I talk about it in this video that I'm showing on the screen right now. Anyway, I think the premise and the main character are really what makes me love it. Firstly, the premise of a time loop where the main character has improved their skills over time is my fantasy. I love learning new things so much, my whole dang channel is literally based around the concept. There are also a lot of really specific things that just endear me to the book and make it feel like it was made for me. The main character, Zorian, starts out as a grumpy asshole with a superiority complex. He's extremely paranoid and has an annoying little sister that isn't that bad once you get to know him. Very specific, I know. He's just so me when I was a kid, okay? I don't have that much of a superiority complex now. Besides that, I think the book gives you perspective. Maybe it's just me not reading that much or being super involved in global politics or something, but I feel like the ongoing threats and stress that the main character faces just makes me feel grateful for how much smaller my problems and struggles are. It also makes me wonder if I was too much like Zorian before the time loop. Maybe I was too harsh and unforgiving, not realizing the smallness of it all in the face of larger struggles. Other than that, this is probably the most I've ever felt immersed in a world, and I don't say that lightly. I don't think I have aphantasia, which is when you can't visualize anything, but I probably have something close, because whenever I try to visualize anything, it's like I see a vague shadow of what something should be. But through reading Mother of Learning, I just felt like I could see everything. And one last note, I've always dreamed about being able to create an epic, some sort of amazing fantasy world with an absurd scope only equivalent to that of One Piece, and Mother of Learning is, to me, the best example of something that feels within reach. It might have taken this guy 8 to 9 years to write, but it's still really inspiring. The fact that one dude wrote this is amazing. Anyway, speaking of absurdly long reads, another one I feel obligated to talk about because it's like 500,000 words long and I read it in a week is All the Young Dudes, which is a Marauders fan fiction that covers the characters of Harry Potter's dad, mom, and friends from Remus Lupin's perspective when they were all at Hogwarts. And I think it was something to be sure. To quote my journal, it's just a depressing experience. The whole thing reeks of repression and pushing down your feelings because you can't face them, and, well, honestly, that's what it was like. It covers really heavy topics: discrimination, pain, toxic relationships, parental abuse, war, grief, and a lot of other depressing stuff. I think the hardest part of it was being in Lupin's perspective. Comparing myself to him, I kind of wonder what my life would be like if I had that much tragedy in it. Would I be as distraught and plain old hopeless and fucked up? At that point, I couldn't even blame the guy either, you know? By the way, I'm going to talk about canon's Harry Potter stuff, so it's not really a spoiler. Anyway, if you were Lupin, what are you supposed to do when everyone's dying, your best friend and love of your life apparently betrays you, while almost everyone is suspicious or curious about what you had to do with it all? I probably would have been swallowed up by it all too. Seeing Lupin just work cleaning jobs here and there, just drifting by as a shell of his former self. It's sad, really. Seeing all those years flash by in a blur, I don't think I want to read something like that anytime soon. If Mother of Learning was the equivalent of stressful paranoia, All the Young Dudes was unresolved trauma and a bottled-up can of emotions being shaked relentlessly. I kind of wonder what I would have done in Remus's shoes. It's hard for me to imagine being him. We're opposites in a way that I freely talk about my own feelings with specific friends and rarely bottle things up. My whole channel's kind of evidence of that. Honestly, it's a habit for me to rant and be honest. I don't see much point in hiding it. So when I read this fanfiction, it felt like every part of me was getting repressed too. I was just aching for him to talk, to be curious, to ask questions, and to be honest. And he did, though it was slow and hard. And I guess that's what stories like these do. They make you sit with feelings you might normally push away or might not even have. And even if I didn't really enjoy that feeling of being suffocating, I think reading this forced me to sit in someone else's pain for a while, and it's kind of valuable in its own way. And so, by the end of this, how did this whole reading challenge change me? Well, funnily enough, I think that I really did end up seeing a lot of perspectives as seen on Becoming a Novelist book, which made me rethink how I approach creative pursuits. And with Mother of Learning and All the Young Dudes, I also realized just how much books help me process emotions and reflect on my own life experiences. But the biggest takeaway is something that I always wanted to believe. It's a callback to the intro, by the way. Which is that, it's okay to do stuff for fun sometimes. I should just let myself read without pressure, without guilt, and without feeling like it has to be productive. It's really easy for me to turn something I love into work, but I don't want reading to be another thing I want to optimize. I want to love stories for the sake of loving them. And now after all this, I keep reading every week? Probably not. But I think from now on, instead of reaching for my phone or opening a webcomic, I'll reach for a book more often. And if you want to watch a new video, I reflect more on lit RPGs and progression fantasy novels in this video right here that I'm putting on the screen. And if you want to support me, subscribe to my Patreon. I really appreciate the people who do that. And also, you know, if you do that, I can also, like, draw you a profile picture if you want. Yeah.